knew nothing.
We're gonna be right there in each other's faces. Right there. There's no avoiding conversations.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm moving.
You know, okay, let's sit down, because it's a lot.
I'm moving.
You know what? Good for you.
It's the kind of moment that never makes it to the TLC highlight reels. The house is quiet, almost too quiet, and there's this heaviness in the air that you can't shake. Logan Brown, the eldest son, is gone. No dramatic goodbye, no confessional, no camera crew following him out the door. Just a packed bag, a silent drive, and a family left behind to fill in the blanks. The show would later say he was off to college, focused on his future. But anyone who's watched Sister Wives from the beginning knows there's always more to the story. The truth is, Logan's exit wasn't about academics. It was about survival. It was about a son who finally reached his breaking point after years of being pushed aside for the sake of someone else's narrative. Hi, friends. I'm Sarah, and this is TLC Sister Wives Exposes. If you're as obsessed with the real stories behind the Brown family as I am, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know, did you see this coming? Did you ever wonder why Logan really left? Let's set the stage. Kody Brown, the self-proclaimed patriarch, has always been about the big picture. The man loves a camera, loves a storyline, and loves being seen as the hero. But what happens when that need for control and public validation starts to eat away at the people closest to him? Janelle, the steady force, always trying to keep the peace. Robin, the wild card, whose arrival changed everything. And then there's Dayton, Robin's son, caught in the middle of a family that's more about appearances than actual connection. This is the story the cameras never fully captured. The cost of Kody's obsession with image and the silent implosion that followed. If you've been watching since the early days, you remember Logan as the one who always had it together. He was the oldest, the fixer, the kid who stepped up when things got messy. While the other Brown kids were still figuring out their place, Logan was already acting like a third parent, helping with homework, wrangling siblings, smoothing over arguments. He was the glue, and honestly, sometimes it felt like he was holding the whole family together with his bare hands. But then came Robin. Her entrance wasn't just another wife joining the family. It was a seismic shift. Suddenly, the energy in the house changed. Robin brought her own kids, and with them, a new set of needs and expectations. Dayton, her oldest, was quiet, sensitive, and clearly needed extra support. Kody saw an opportunity. He started pouring his attention into Robin's kids, especially Dayton. It was like he wanted to prove to everyone, maybe even to himself, that he could be the ultimate dad, the savior, the man who could fix any broken family. The cameras caught a lot of Kody's big gestures, family meetings, emotional speeches, promises to always be there. But what they didn't always show was how his focus on Robin's children started to create cracks in his relationships with his own kids. Logan, who had always been the reliable one, suddenly found himself on the outside looking in. The more Kody tried to play the hero for Robin's family, the more he pulled away from the kids who had been there from the start. Janelle saw it happening. You could see it in her face during those group interviews, the way she'd glance at Logan, the way her voice would tighten when Kody talked about unity. The family dynamic was shifting, and not in a way that felt safe or healthy. Logan was losing his place, not because he changed, but because the spotlight had moved. Cody's need to be seen as the perfect father to Robin's kids was starting to cost him the trust and connection he'd built with his own. And for Logan, that hurt ran deep. When the topic of adopting Dayton came up, it wasn't just a legal process. It became a full-blown production. Kody wanted the world to see him as the dad who would do anything for his family, especially for Robin's kids. He started talking about the adoption on camera, making it clear that this was his chance to prove his love and commitment. But behind the scenes, things were tense. Every adult in the family was expected to show support, and Kody made it clear that anything less than full enthusiasm would be seen as betrayal. Logan felt the pressure more than anyone. He'd always been the good son, the one who kept his head down and did what was expected. But this time, it felt different. Supporting the adoption in public meant pretending everything was fine, that he was okay with being pushed aside, that he didn't mind Kody's sudden obsession with Robin's family. Logan was torn. He cared about Dayton, but he couldn't ignore the pain of being replaced in his own father's eyes. The cameras wanted a happy, united family. Logan wanted honesty. Then came the moment that changed everything. Off camera, away from the confessional chairs and the TLC crew, Kody gave Logan a choice. Either stand in front of the cameras and support the adoption, or step aside and stay silent. It wasn't a request, it was an ultimatum. For Logan, that was the final straw. He realized he couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep sacrificing his own truth for the sake of Kody's image. So Logan left. No dramatic exit, no big speech. He just packed his things and walked away. The show glossed over it, saying he was focused on school and his future. But the real story was about a son who finally chose self-respect over performance, and a family that was left to pick up the pieces. After Logan left, the Brown family's story shifted in a way that only longtime viewers could really sense. Kody wasted no time shaping the narrative. He started telling anyone who would listen that Logan was just growing up, that he needed space, that it was all part of the natural order. But if you watched closely, you could see the cracks. Kody's words were always about unity, but his actions told a different story. He painted Logan as distant, even ungrateful, quietly blaming him for not playing along with the family script. Robin played her part, too. She leaned into the role of the wounded mother, reminding the younger kids that Logan had chosen to leave, that he didn't want to be part of their lives anymore. It was subtle, but it worked. The younger siblings started to see Logan as the one who walked away, not as the brother who had been pushed out. Dayton, especially, was caught in the middle. He'd looked up to Logan, but now he was left with questions and a sense of loss that no one wanted to talk about. Janelle was stuck in an impossible position. She loved her son fiercely, but she was also trying to hold the family together. You could see the pain in her eyes during those rare moments when Logan's name came up. She wanted to defend him, to tell the truth, but she also knew how quickly Kody could turn on anyone who challenged his version of events. For Logan, the cost was huge. He gave up his place in the family, his role as the steady big brother, and even parts of his own identity. Away from the cameras, he started building a new life, one that was quieter, more private, and finally free from the constant pressure to perform. He found peace, but it came at the price of losing the only family he'd ever known. Years passed, and the silence around Logan's departure became its own kind of wound. The show moved on, the family moved on, at least on the surface. But the truth has a way of bubbling up, especially in families where so much has been left unsaid. One snowy afternoon, Janelle was at home with Logan and his fiancée, Michelle, enjoying a rare, peaceful visit. The last thing anyone expected was a knock at the door, but there it was. When Janelle opened it, she found Robin standing on the porch, flanked by Dayton and Aurora. No warning, no heads up, just a sudden, awkward reunion. Robin came in with that soft, careful voice she uses when she wants to seem gentle but is really on a mission. She said she wasn't there to fight, just to talk, but the tension was thick. Dayton looked nervous, Aurora kept her eyes down, and Janelle's patience was already wearing thin. Robin started talking about closure, about how the family needed to heal, about how Dayton deserved answers. But it was clear she wanted something else. She wanted Logan to admit he was wrong, to take the blame for the family's pain. Logan didn't give her what she wanted. He stayed calm, but you could see the years of hurt in his eyes. He told Robin he owed her nothing, that he wouldn't pretend for the cameras or for anyone else. Robin's voice started to crack. She accused Logan of abandoning the family, of hurting Dayton, of letting his pride get in the way. But Logan stood his ground. He said he left because he couldn't keep lying, couldn't keep playing a part in a family that cared more about appearances than truth. Dayton finally spoke up, his voice shaky. He admitted he'd always wondered why Logan left without saying goodbye, why he felt so alone after the adoption. Logan softened, telling Dayton he'd always cared, but he had to walk away to survive. Janelle stepped in, shutting down Robin's attempt to rewrite history. She called out the years of manipulation, the way Robin and Kody had twisted the story to protect themselves. For the first time, the truth started to break through the silence, and Robin realized she couldn't control the narrative anymore. After that tense afternoon at Janelle's, Dayton couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The story he'd been told about Logan never quite fit, and now, hearing Logan's side, the pieces started to fall into place. Dayton waited until the house was quiet, then found Kody alone, hoping for honesty. He asked straight out, "Why did Logan really leave?" Kody tried to brush it off, blaming Logan for being difficult, for not supporting the adoption, for refusing to play along. But Dayton pressed harder, wanting the truth, not the version meant for TV. Kody hesitated, then admitted he'd given Logan an ultimatum: support the adoption publicly or step aside. Dayton's face fell. He realized Logan hadn't abandoned the family. He'd been pushed out for refusing to fake his feelings. The story he'd grown up believing was just that: a story, carefully crafted to protect Kody's image and keep the family in line. Dayton didn't stop there. He found Robin in the kitchen, her eyes tired, her guard down. He asked her why she'd told him Logan didn't care, why she'd let him believe his brother was cold and uncaring. Robin tried to explain, saying she only wanted Dayton to feel safe, that she never meant to hurt anyone. But Dayton saw through it. He told her he needed to find his own answers, that he couldn't keep living by someone else's script. That night, Dayton did something he'd never done before. He reached out to Logan directly, sending a simple message asking if they could talk. For the first time, Dayton was ready to hear the truth from his brother, not from the people who needed to control the story. The old narrative was gone, replaced by a new determination to understand what really happened, and maybe to start healing. Logan and Dayton met up in a quiet coffee shop, far from the chaos of family drama and the ever-present cameras. There was an awkwardness at first, both of them unsure how to start. Dayton looked older, more serious, but still had that same searching look in his eyes. Logan was guarded, but you could tell he wanted this conversation as much as Dayton did. They talked honestly, for the first time in years. Dayton admitted he'd always felt like he was taking someone's place, that the adoption made him feel like a replacement instead of a brother. Logan listened, then told Dayton he never blamed him, that his problem was never with Dayton. It was with the way things were handled, the pressure to pretend, the expectation to perform for the cameras. He explained how hard it was to walk away, how much it hurt to leave his siblings, but how he couldn't keep sacrificing himself for a family that wouldn't let him be real. Dayton nodded, finally understanding. The anger and confusion started to fade, replaced by relief. They didn't fix everything in one conversation, but it was a start. For the first time, they saw each other as brothers, not as characters in someone else's story. Healing had finally begun. Kody could sense the shift before anyone said a word. The old control he once had over the family's story was slipping, and he didn't know how to handle it. When he found out Logan and Dayton had met without him, the frustration boiled over. He stormed into Janelle's space, demanding answers, blaming her for turning the kids against him. Janelle didn't back down. She told him straight. Logan left because he was tired of being used, tired of being told what to feel, tired of being erased for the sake of Kody's image. Hunter, who'd been listening from the hallway, finally stepped in. He told Kody he'd watched his brother struggle for years, watched their dad rewrite history to suit himself, and he wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The room felt different. For the first time, Kody was outnumbered. The kids weren't afraid to speak up, and Janelle wasn't willing to protect Kody's feelings at the expense of her own children. Kody realized he couldn't force the family back into his version of unity. The narrative he'd worked so hard to control was gone. The family was finally choosing truth over performance, and Kody was left to face the consequences of his own choices. When you look at what happened to the Browns, it's impossible to ignore the real cost of putting image and control above everything else. Kody's obsession with being seen as the perfect father, the hero, the man who could do it all, it didn't just fracture his relationship with Logan. It sent shockwaves through the entire family. Kids who once felt safe and seen started to question their place. Wives who tried to keep the peace found themselves caught in the crossfire. And the son, who had always been the rock, the steady hand, was forced to walk away just to protect his own sense of self. This isn't just a story about one family on reality TV. It's a warning about what happens when the need to look good on the outside becomes more important than being honest on the inside. The truth is, families can't heal if everyone's pretending. Real connection only happens when people are allowed to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away from roles that don't fit. Logan's silence wasn't about bitterness. It was about survival. Dayton's questions weren't about disloyalty. They were about wanting to understand. And Janelle's refusal to play along wasn't about rebellion. It was about finally standing up for her kids. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't always look pretty. But when people start telling the truth, when they stop performing and start listening, something shifts. The Browns may never go back to the way things were, but they've started something more important. A new chapter built on honesty, respect, and the courage to face what's real. If you've ever felt blocked out or pressured to play a part in your own family, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Don't forget to subscribe to TLC Sister Wives Daily for more real talk, more behind-the-scenes truth, and more moments that the cameras never show. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.